In the race for views and viral fame, some creators crossed a line they could never return from, where a single click, one more breath, or the perfect shot became their last. These weren't just accidents. They were preventable tragedies born from ambition, ignorance, and the relentless hunger for content that cost them everything. It was October 9th, 2017. A San Diego apartment complex sat 3 blocks from the coast, its units filled with young professionals and freelancers. The evening was mild, with temperatures in the low 60s. Inside a second-floor unit, the kitchen had been transformed into a makeshift studio. Ring lights flanked a narrow counter. A cutting board sat in the center with a thawing whole pufferfish still partially frozen. A phone mounted on a stand captured the workspace from above. Vexi Kroot worked from this kitchen regularly. At 27, she earned income as a freelance food photographer, but her growing audience came from experimental cooking videos that pushed culinary boundaries. She had no formal chef training, no certifications in exotic food preparation, and no knowledge of legal restrictions surrounding certain ingredients. Her content thrived on spectacle and risk. Earlier that week, she had purchased the pufferfish frozen through an online specialty distributor that marketed exotic seafood but included fine print disclaimers prohibiting consumption. She ignored them. A friend sat off camera on a stool near the refrigerator, reading live comments from viewers. The stream began around 8:15 p.m. Vexi explained her intent to prepare and taste the fish, dismissing safety concerns as overly cautious. She used a standard kitchen knife to make the initial incisions. When she opened the abdominal cavity to remove the organs, the blade punctured the tissue, releasing internal fluids that spread across the cutting board. She rinsed the fish under tap water, but did not sanitize the workspace or change knives. Cross-contamination had occurred. She carved 2 thin slices from the dorsal section, each roughly the size of a poker chip. She held one up to the camera, then placed both on a small plate. At 8:32 p.m., she consumed them. The taste was mild, slightly sweet. She continued speaking to the camera, describing the texture. Within 5 to 7 minutes, Vexi's speech began to falter. She paused mid-sentence, touching her lips. She mentioned numbness around her mouth and tingling spreading to her tongue. Her words became slurred. She attempted to stand from her stool but stumbled, gripping the counter. Her balance wavered. She knocked into one of the ring lights, which clattered to the tile floor. Her arms began to hang stiffly at her sides. Muscle coordination visibly deteriorated. She tried to lift her hand to her face, but the movement was slow and uncontrolled. Her breathing became rapid and shallow, each breath more labored. Her friend stood and asked if she was okay. No coherent response came. She took 2 unsteady steps toward the sink and collapsed. Her body struck the tile floor, her cheek hitting first. She lay on her side, chest still moving, but with minimal effort. Her breathing slowed, the intervals between breaths lengthening. Her friend crouched beside her and called 911 at approximately 8:44 p.m. Emergency medical services arrived within 8 minutes. Paramedics found Vexi unresponsive with extremely shallow respiration and a weak, irregular pulse. Her airway was compromised due to paralysis of respiratory muscles. She was intubated on site. During transport, her cardiac function deteriorated. Respiratory paralysis led to severe hypoxemia, precipitating cardiac arrest. Despite advanced intervention, Vexi Kroot was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the hospital. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death as tetrodotoxin poisoning consistent with improperly prepared pufferfish. The toxin likely contaminated the flesh during organ rupture, exposing her to an unpredictable but potentially lethal dose. Tetrodotoxin causes progressive paralysis with no antidote. Police collected the fish remains, cutting board, knives, and kitchen tools as evidence. Lab tests confirmed lethal concentrations of the toxin. Investigators found no indication of foul play. The death was ruled accidental self-poisoning due to consumption of an improperly prepared restricted species. The live stream recording documented the entire sequence from preparation to collapse. Vexi Kroot's fatal error stemmed from culinary overconfidence without the proper training to handle one of the world's most dangerous ingredients. Across the country in San Diego, a culinary experimenter with a camera and no formal training was about to discover that some ingredients should never make it to the plate. It was July 18, 2016. At Tempe Town Lake in central Arizona, late afternoon heat hovered in the mid-90s as calm water stretched along the eastern embankment. Depths ranged from roughly 8 to 12 feet, and thick silt on the uneven lakebed reduced visibility to near zero once disturbed. Created from a dammed section of the Salt River, the murky water kept most swimmers away despite steady foot traffic from joggers and kayakers nearby. Hollis Plack arrived at the embankment carrying a 15-pound cast iron weight plate. At 24, he worked at a retail store specializing in outdoor equipment and had built a modest online following by posting breath-hold endurance challenges. He had no formal freediving certification and no training in blackout recognition or rescue procedures. His content relied on spectacle rather than technique, with each video attempting to outlast the previous one. He had performed similar stunts in pools and shallow rivers, but never in conditions this murky. Two friends accompanied him, one positioned on shore with a camera, the other on a rented paddleboard floating roughly 20 feet offshore. Neither entered the water. No safety diver was present. They had scouted the location an hour earlier, but had not tested the depth or visibility. The plan was simple. Hollis would hold the plate to his chest to counteract buoyancy, descend down the steep concrete embankment, and move along the silt-covered lakebed for as long as he could hold his breath. The cameras would capture the surface view and his eventual return. He took several deep breaths, hyperventilating to suppress his breathing reflex, a technique that masks carbon dioxide buildup and increases the risk of shallow water blackout without warning. He submerged shortly after 5:40 p.m. The moment he descended, his feet disturbed the silt. Thick clouds of sediment billowed upward, turning the water opaque. He moved slowly along the bottom, the weight plate pressed against his ribs as disturbed silt reduced visibility almost instantly. From the paddleboard, his silhouette was barely visible through the murk. After roughly 90 seconds, his pace slowed noticeably. His stance widened as if to steady himself. Then his body stiffened. A stream of bubbles broke the surface, larger than the controlled exhalations from earlier. His knees buckled. As hypoxia set in, loss of motor control caused involuntary release of the plate. It slipped from his grip and sank into the sediment. He collapsed forward, face first into the silt, his body partially embedded in the soft lake bed as unconsciousness took hold. He did not move again. No further bubbles emerged. On shore, his friends hesitated. They assumed he was extending the stunt, pushing the limits as he often did. The paddleboarder called out, asking if he should go in, but received no instruction. Seconds stretched into minutes. At roughly 3 minutes submerged, one friend finally entered the water without flotation gear. The silt made it difficult to locate him by feel alone. Visibility beneath the surface was less than 6 inches. Hollis was pulled to the surface at approximately 4.5 minutes total submersion time. His lips had begun to darken. He was not breathing. Emergency services were called within minutes. Responders documented no pulse and no respiratory effort upon assessment. CPR was initiated immediately on the embankment. Water and foamy fluid were visible during ventilation attempts. Despite prolonged resuscitation efforts, return of spontaneous circulation was never achieved. Irreversible hypoxic brain injury was likely given submersion time exceeding 4 minutes before effective ventilation. The medical examiner confirmed drowning following prolonged hypoxic submersion. Tempe Fire documented the absence of any life jacket, safety diver, or emergency plan. Police logged the weight plate and recording equipment as evidence. Contributing factors included intentional hyperventilation, weighted submersion, and delayed rescue. Hollis Plack was pronounced dead at a local hospital just after 6:30 p.m. Investigators found no signs of foul play. The silt-heavy conditions, the weight plate, and the lack of immediate intervention created a scenario with no margin for error. His final video was never uploaded. But Hollis wasn't the only content creator whose quest for views ended in tragedy. But across the country in Tulsa, another content creator's lack of expertise was about to turn a routine cleaning project into a toxic disaster. It was March 3, 2015. The afternoon in Tulsa carried a damp chill with temperatures in the low 50s and gray clouds hanging over the residential neighborhoods. Inside a ground-floor apartment in a modest rental complex on the south side, the air was still. The unit was quiet, most neighbors at work or running errands. The bathroom was cramped, measuring about 5 by 8 feet, with tile covering the lower walls and a single overhead vent fan that had been neglected for years. No window, no external airflow. just a narrow space with a door that opened inward and barely any gap underneath. Dallin Spive had the day off. At 22, he worked at a car wash during the week and used his spare time to film budget-friendly cleaning tutorials. He had no background in chemistry, no certifications, and no formal training in handling household chemicals. His content was built on experimentation, mixing products to see what worked best. The approach had earned him a small but loyal audience who appreciated the low-cost alternatives to expensive cleaners. That afternoon, he decided to film a grout-whitening hack. He positioned his phone on the edge of the bathroom sink, angling it toward the floor where a plastic bucket sat waiting. He had gathered 2 large containers earlier that day. One held roughly half a gallon of standard bleach. The other contained about the same amount of an ammonia-based multi-purpose cleaner. Both were common products available at any grocery store. He placed the bucket between the toilet and the tub and wedged a rolled towel against the bottom of the door. The vent fan stayed off. He wanted a controlled environment for the camera. Dallin poured the bleach first. It filled the bottom of the bucket, pooling to a depth of around 2 inches. Then he added the ammonia-based cleaner on top. The chemical reaction was instant. A toxic cloud of chloramine vapor formed instantly, releasing irritant gases capable of causing acute lung injury. The vapor surged upward from the bucket, dense and yellow-green. He leaned in close, holding the phone just above the mixture to capture the bubbling effect. He inhaled. The coughing started within seconds. Deep, uncontrollable spasms that forced him to drop the phone back onto the sink. His throat and lungs burned as the gas made contact with the moisture in his respiratory tract. He stumbled backward, slamming his hip into the sink edge. His breathing turned harsh and ragged, each attempt to inhale producing a wet, rasping sound. The vapor continued to rise, filling the small room with caustic fumes. He reached for the door handle, but his hand slipped. His legs buckled. He fell sideways, his shoulder crashing into the side of the bathtub before he slid down to the tile floor. The dense vapor accumulated near the floor, intensifying with every breath he took. He tried to crawl. His fingers scraped against the grout as he pulled himself forward, covering maybe 2 feet before his strength gave out. He collapsed onto his side, face toward the door he could not reach. The phone on the sink continued recording. The vapor thickened into a visible haze. Around 6:15 p.m., a neighbor detected a sharp chemical smell seeping through the shared wall. She contacted the building manager, who knocked and received no answer. Emergency services were called. Fire crews arrived with respiratory gear and detected dangerous chloramine gas levels before entering. They found Dallin unconscious on the bathroom floor. Frothy fluid surrounded his mouth and nose. His breathing was barely detectable. Paramedics attempted emergency treatment, but his airway had sustained significant trauma. He was transported immediately, but respiratory function continued to deteriorate. Acute chemical pneumonitis progressed rapidly to non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Dallin Spive was pronounced dead at 6:47 p.m. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be acute chloramine gas inhalation, resulting in chemical pneumonitis and complete respiratory failure. Fire officials documented both chemical containers, the bucket with residue, and the towel that had sealed the door. 2 nearby tenants were evaluated for minor exposure symptoms. The incident was classified as accidental. The phone footage was recovered and logged as evidence. Investigators confirmed no signs of foul play or external involvement. The combination of bleach and ammonia in an enclosed space had created lethal conditions within moments. We've got more disturbing influencer tragedies coming up, so hit that subscribe button if you want to see how chasing clout and viral fame can turn deadly in seconds. It was May 14, 2016. In a quiet Raleigh neighborhood under mild spring skies, a single-story home's primary bathroom had been set up for filming. The small 8 by 10 foot space held a bathtub filled with about 10 inches of hot water, the door locked from the inside, and a phone mounted on a tripod aimed toward the tub. Rigby Thant had planned the session carefully. At 26, he worked at a dental office handling appointments and patient records, but his online presence focused entirely on bath and wellness products. His content featured featured product reviews, relaxation routines, and self-care demonstrations. He had disclosed his severe almond allergy multiple times in previous videos, noting that even trace exposure caused significant reactions. That afternoon, he had received a handmade bath bomb in the mail from a follower. The package included no ingredient list, no labeling, and no return address. He decided to test it on camera. The live stream began in the early evening. He showed the bath bomb to the camera, a large sphere wrapped in plain tissue paper. He unwrapped it and dropped it into the hot water. It fizzed immediately, releasing a cloud of fragrance and dissolving rapidly. Steam began rising from the surface, carrying the scent upward in visible wisps. As the bath bomb broke apart, a thick layer of oil spread across the water, creating an iridescent sheen. The fragrance was sweet and nutty, intensifying as the steam filled the small enclosed space. He eased himself into the tub, settling back as the product continued to dissolve. With each breath, he drew in the humid air saturated with aerosolized particles from the dissolving oils. Within minutes, his skin began to react. Small raised hives appeared across his chest and spread up his neck. He touched his throat, his expression shifting from relaxed to confused. He began coughing, shallow at first, then more forceful. His breathing changed, becoming audibly strained. His voice, when he tried to speak toward the camera, came out hoarse and tight. The allergic reaction was progressing rapidly, the inhalation of airborne almond proteins accelerating the response beyond what skin contact alone would have triggered. He gripped the sides of the tub and tried to stand. His feet slipped on the oil-slicked porcelain. His balance failed. He fell backward, the back of his head striking the curved edge of the tub with a dull impact. The blow stunned him. He slid sideways, his torso tipping into the shallow water. His airway, already swelling from anaphylaxis, took in water. His chest movements became erratic and shallow. Consciousness faded. He remained partially submerged, face down in less than a foot of water. A neighbor who regularly watched and moderated his live streams noticed the feed had gone still. After several minutes without movement, she called his phone. No answer. Concerned, she walked over and knocked. The front door was unlocked, but the bathroom door was not. She called emergency services at approximately 7:35 p.m. Responders arrived and forced entry into the bathroom. Rigby was found face down in the water, unresponsive. His skin showed widespread hives and significant facial swelling. He was pulled from the tub and CPR was initiated immediately. His airway was severely compromised. Advanced medical intervention was attempted, but cardiac activity could not be sustained. He was transported and pronounced dead shortly after arrival at a nearby hospital. The medical examiner conducted an autopsy and determined the cause of death to be anaphylaxis due to almond oil exposure, with contributing factors of blunt head trauma and drowning. Toxicology confirmed the presence of allergens consistent with unrefined almond oil. Police collected the remnants of the bath bomb, which tested positive for concentrated almond oil. The packaging was logged as evidence. No signs of intentional harm or tampering were discovered. The incident was classified as accidental. Investigators concluded that the combination of severe allergic reaction triggered by inhalation of aerosolized almond proteins in the steam-filled bathroom, the head injury from the fall, and subsequent submersion in water had created a fatal sequence of events. But Rigby wasn't the only content creator whose focus on capturing the perfect moment would cost them everything. 2 years later in Gary, Indiana, an urban explorer was about to learn that not all dangers announce themselves. Some wait silently beneath your feet. It was September 22, 2018. The abandoned hotel on the eastern edge of downtown Gary, Indiana, stood as another marker of the city's industrial decline. Built in the 1920s, the brick building had weathered badly, most windows broken or boarded, a chain-link fence full of gaps surrounding it. Inside, the 40 by 30-foot lobby featured a grand staircase and decades of neglect. Warped floorboards, water stains, sagging patches from roof leaks. Dusk was settling, weak natural light filtering through broken windows. Merritt Glade arrived alone. At 29, he worked as a freelance videographer, building a portfolio focused on abandoned architecture and urban decay. He carried roughly 18 pounds of equipment, a camera, 2 lenses, a tripod, and a stabilizer rig. His content emphasized atmospheric shots over thorough exploration. He had visited dozens of abandoned sites over the past 3 years, usually without permission. He entered through a side door that had been pried open previously. His focus was on lighting and composition, not structural integrity. He had no training in building safety or hazard assessment. The lobby offered the kind of visual decay he sought: peeling wallpaper, dust suspended in the fading light, and the skeletal remains of a reception desk. He moved slowly, testing angles and adjusting camera settings. The floor creaked under his weight in several places, but he attributed it to the age of the building. He stepped carefully around obvious holes and missing sections, but paid less attention to discolored areas that appeared intact from the surface. He positioned himself near the center of the room, adjusting the tripod height. Then he moved a few feet to his left, eyes on the camera screen rather than the floor beneath him. He stepped onto a darkened patch of wood that looked solid but had been compromised by rot and moisture. The boards gave a sharp crack. They collapsed instantly under his combined weight and the equipment he carried. He fell through the opening. The drop measured approximately 8 feet into a crawl space beneath the lobby. His body twisted as he descended. A vertical rusted iron pipe, roughly 2 inches in diameter, protruded from the crawl space floor where old plumbing had been abandoned. The pipe penetrated his left upper abdomen just below the rib margin. The force of the fall drove it deep into soft tissue, tearing through internal structures and major blood vessels. His momentum carried him forward, and he slid off the pipe, collapsing onto the dirt floor below. The camera, still recording, had fallen separately and landed lens up several feet away. The audio captured a strangled cry, then labored, irregular breathing. He attempted to draw breath, to press his hands against the wound, but the rapid internal blood loss caused dizziness and loss of consciousness within moments. The sounds grew quieter and more spaced out. Within less than 2 minutes, silence followed. His absence was not noticed immediately. He lived alone and worked independently, with no family in the immediate area and few close friends who tracked his whereabouts. His irregular work schedule meant days could pass without contact. 3 days later, a property inspector conducting a routine check discovered his vehicle still parked near the building. Police were notified. Officers found Merritt in the crawl space below. His clothing was saturated with dried blood. The rusted pipe stood vertically where it had struck him. Emergency personnel confirmed no signs of life. The body was transported to the county medical examiner. The autopsy documented a penetrating abdominal wound. Massive internal hemorrhage due to vascular injury was confirmed. The cause of death was listed as exsanguination from traumatic impalement. Police investigators documented the scene, the equipment, and the compromised flooring. The building owner was contacted, and the property was later secured more thoroughly. No evidence of third-party involvement was found. The death was ruled accidental. Merritt Glade was officially pronounced dead at the scene, though time of death was estimated to have occurred shortly after the fall 3 days earlier. His final footage showed the moments leading up to the collapse, but not the fall itself, where Merritt's pursuit of the perfect shot led him into a crumbling structure. Another creator's focus on wellness content would bring an unexpected danger into his own home. In Raleigh, a lifestyle vlogger was about to test a product sent by a follower, unaware of what it contained. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.